I cut off my best friend right before my wedding, and I don't feel bad.
I guess you're gonna have to find a new maid of honor.
I, 26 female, and my now ex-bestie, let's call her Amy, also 26 female, have been close friends for the last 15 years. When I met her in middle school, I was a very awkward and withdrawn person. I was still living with my family who mistreated me physically and mentally, and I didn't know how to have normal interactions or how to make or keep friends. By the way, this comes from user You Got No Dirty Jam Jams. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, despite this, she was happy to be my friend and teach me social norms. She always went out of her way to make sure I knew I was always loved and always had somebody to rely on, and acted like the big sister I had always wanted. She was also very honest about certain behaviors or opinions I had that she didn't like or were inappropriate, and would suggest how I could work on them to be a better person in the long term. For this, I will always be grateful. Cut to a few years later. I left the house when I turned 18 to attend uni in another state. I would come back home every few months, but would spend most of my time with Amy. I noticed that her family had become a lot more controlling. They wouldn't let her leave the house without them. They'd also police her friendships and relationships and gaslight her into doing what they thought was right. At the same time, Amy began belittling me in small ways and talking down to me. She'd call me names, comment on my weight or style, and how miserly I was.
She's calling you miserly?
A miser, a person who hoards money and is excessively stingy, often to the point of living in wretched circumstances to save money.
If we were hanging out as a group and a friend made a joke, she would jump at the opportunity to make fun of me and have people laugh at my expense. I let this go most of the time because she was my best friend and I owed her so much. Sometimes I'd mention it and she'd get angry or upset and claim I misunderstood her and that I'm being dramatic. We'd stop talking for a while and then become friends again, pretending the fight didn't happen. But this would happen over and over again. A few years down the line, I moved to a different country, got a master's degree at an Ivy League university, and met my fiance, who means the world to me. Amy, on the other hand, slowly isolated herself from all of her friends. She claimed these friendships, which wouldn't last more than a few weeks, weren't good enough for her, and she spent all day at home by herself while her family turned even more bitter and controlling. It was difficult to have conversations with her because she had become incredibly misogynistic and a bit of a pick-me.
Yikes.
She would always talk about how women have become so low value.
Ew! Who is this girl?
She would always talk about how women have become so low value and they need to be better for their men and the need for more men's rights. She'd talk about how we were too hard on a certain misogynist and that he had some valid opinions. I'm pretty sure they're talking about Andrew Tate.
Yes, sorry. Think a bald man.
She's also let her boyfriend treat her poorly, claiming that what little he did, she barely deserved.
Girl, get out of there!
It was very hard for me to hear her talk like this, considering the harmful past I had, and it was horrifying to see her slowly turn into the opposite of who I knew her as. Not to mention the belittling was now in full drive. She judged me so harshly on my decisions, most of which are just normal life choices. She told me I wasn't womanly enough and that my ideals of a relationship were problematic. Every time I expressed an opinion, she would jump and express an opposite opinion and demand that I debate with her, even if my opinion was a basic human right. She would mention things I told her I'm insecure about in front of other people, but without mentioning my name. Ooh, that's trash.
And the funny thing is that if she actually didn't have, if she was actually living in the world that she supposedly wants, she wouldn't be able to say any of this.
For example, I told her about how I wished I had a better job after uni and that I moved to another country just to keep earning minimum wage. I also told her that over time I was able to fathom more and more about how badly my family had treated me and that I was consumed with anger and it was taking over my life. When we would hang out with friends, she would casually mention how she could never work a minimum wage job that didn't make her happy, and that she feels sorry for people who only focus on their anger, and that she would never stoop to that level.
Oh, you exhaust me, lady. You exhaust me.
This is coming from someone who has never left the nest, always had someone do her chores, has never paid a bill, and has more or less never felt the hardships of adult life. And the way she mentioned my issues was worse than when she'd openly mentioned them because it made me feel isolated and took me straight back into my previous life at home. I had to walk on eggshells around her not to provoke an outburst and not to overshare anything she could use against me. But I still kept the friendship because
Why?
I owe her so much.
Owe her for what?
And I didn't want to leave at a time she needed me. Amy had a habit of sending regular hour-long voice notes where she would ramble on with a few important things about her life scattered here and there. I was listening to one where she talked about being a shell of her former self, which was maybe 5 minutes of the voice note, and she ended it with, "OP, you may feel like you've become more dull as well, but we just need to focus on becoming a better person." That was it. How dare she comment so nonchalantly like that? I never thought of myself as dull. I had spent my entire adult life trying to find my true personality away from my family, and I had just begun therapy sessions to work on my anger issues. I asked her why she called me dull. She didn't respond. I asked her again. She said I mentioned something like that about myself some time ago, and that if I wanted to talk about my opinion, I can call her anytime. How nice of her. I told her I didn't like the way she'd been treating me unfairly all these years and that I won't keep making excuses for her behavior. She told me I seemed convinced that she's the enemy. I told her I'm not going to let her walk over me anymore and that I won't let her be the victim this time. She said this was just a misunderstanding and that I've become too negative. I finally told her I expect an apology and that if she couldn't respect me as a human being, I have to take a step back from this friendship. We didn't speak for a few months. Cut to now. Bro, are you going to talk to her again?
Stop.
You know, what's the point you would have cut her off? Do you have one in your head? I have one in mind.
It's like at the beginning of the story.
My fiance and I decided to do a destination elopement with a few friends. Throughout the planning, I kept thinking I needed to invite Amy to the wedding. I always envisioned her being there, and I thought we could reinvigorate our friendship, so I texted her and invited her to my wedding and offered to pay for her flights and accommodation. She said she would check her schedule and congratulated me on my wedding. Then
Early.
crickets. Good. Just don't care about this person. Stop it.
You offered to pay for her flight?
God, this is the worst chronic people pleaser I think I've ever seen.
Oh, yikes. You got to go to the doctor for that.
Let go of this.
Or a therapist, I suppose.
Let go of her. I asked her if she could figure out if she was able to come because I needed to make the bookings. I told her I'd be happy to sponsor her stay there for longer if she'd like to find a job and move there or have some personal time to relax. She said she would have to come with her dad because they wouldn't let her travel alone. I was okay with that, even though it was kind of weird. A few days later, she asked, "Why would you invite me to your wedding even though you think I have failed as a friend and I'm not worth talking
That's
to?"
an excellent question.
That's
the most reasonable thing she said all day.
the first thing that's made sense in this whole story.
Wow.
Okay, so
Wow.
we've got one person who's in the real world here. Let's
And
figure it
it's
out.
shockingly the person who's the worst.
I told her I didn't think she'd failed as a friend at all, and that I just wanted to enforce my boundaries. I told her that she was my best friend, and I wanted her to be there. She said that she didn't feel any emotional connection from my side, and that I abandoned her when she needed me the most. She said she thought I broke her trust, even though she treated me like family. She then wished me good luck with life and said it was nice knowing me. At this point, I was so angry, I called her dramatic and said that she didn't care about my needs.
Joy.
I told her, wow, oh yeah, that was so angry of you.
He's like, I have anger issues. You don't care about my needs.
And you're being dramatic. Maybe
Grr.
OP's just saying it in the nice way.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe OP did not be that nice.
Maybe her friend was like, you have anger issues. And OP was like, you're right.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's a belief that she picked up from this, horrible friend. I told her I'm sick of her always turning herself into the victim and that the only reason she didn't want to be friends anymore is because she is no longer the center of attention. I called her a narcissist and told her to give up her pride and get real. She did not respond to this.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
And by the way, you can respond to the knowledge that there are full episodes with stories just like this on Spotify and iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can respond to that by going and listening to them. Just search OK Storytime on your platform of choice. And you have a plethora, in the most real sense of the word, a plethora of stories to pick and to choose from. I am now in turmoil. I don't know if I made a huge mistake and have lost my best friend forever. She's not your best friend. Or if I should be glad to dodge a bullet.
Girl,
Ding,
you
ding,
didn't
ding,
dodge
ding.
the bullet. The bullet hit you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the bullet hit you, it went out, and then you dove in front of it again, and then it went out of you, and then you dove in front of it
Yeah,
again.
you somersaulted into it.
Somehow you got hit by the bullet, the same bullet, like 6 times.
Yeah, but in OP's defense, the rest of the parts of her body that didn't get hit by the bullet did dodge the bullet.
It's true.
I've had my fair share of narcissists in my life. I'm a recovering people pleaser.
I don't know if you've recovered yet.
But yeah, you're definitely in recovery still. But I can't say for sure if I just overreacted.
No.
So am I the a-hole?
Girl,
No, you're not.
What?
Really not.
Girl.
You're too forgiving. We do have an edit here at the very end. During our entire friendship, she was happy to listen to all my problems and be there for me if I needed her. She'd offer what advice she could. Sometimes she'd be condescending, but I think she was responding to the best of her knowledge. She also expressed happiness whenever I was happy, and she'd support me in my life decisions that she agreed with.
Well.
That is the end of that story.